Hi, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Paul Steele from Bethlehem Church in Austin, Minnesota. The Bottom Line is our weekly summary of the previous Sunday's sermon. And this past Sunday, we continued on with our sermon series called The Story of Advent as we take a look at the Christmas story. Now, Advent isn't a time for us just to extend the Christmas holiday. Rather, it's an intentional time when we look at the events surrounding Jesus' first coming and are reminded of God's faithfulness, that he promised to send the Messiah, to send the rescuer, to rescue us from Satan, sin, and death. And he kept that promise. And as we meditate on that, as we think about that, we prepare our hearts and are reminded that we can trust God to keep his promise for Jesus to return and make everything right. And that's the importance behind Advent. Now, on Sunday, we continued on looking at this story by looking at Luke chapter 1, verses 8 through 38. And here in this long section of scripture, we see the angel Gabriel visiting two people. He visited an old priest named Zechariah and said, "Hey, Zechariah, you're going to have a son, and he's going to prepare the way for the Messiah." And Gabriel visited a young girl who had not yet been married, named Mary, and said, "You are going to give birth to the Messiah." And when we look at these two encounters, what we're reminded of is that first of all, is that God's plan is going to continue on whether we accept it or not. See, Zechariah said, "No, you got the wrong person. My wife and I, we're too old. This can't happen. How can I be certain?" He wanted to be certain that things would go well for him. But in his unbelief, that didn't stop God's plan from going forward. And so God's plan is going to go forward with or without us. But when we don't work and walk in step with God, we're going to miss out on experiencing God at work in and through our lives. The second thing that we notice here is that faith is greater than significance. Mary is a young girl between 13, 16 years old. She comes from a small town, Nazareth. She, as a girl from a small, insignificant place, she has no power, no voice. And yet, what made her important, it wasn't her significance, wasn't her abilities, but it was her faith, her trust in God. That when God said, "You're going to have this son, you're going to name him Jesus. He's going to save his people from his sins. He's going to sit on the throne of his ancestor David." She said, "Hey, I'm your servant. May all this stuff, may that all come to pass." And that's the type of faith that we need. This where we don't have confidence or we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we step out and we trust God. We trust in his calling. We trust in the direction that he is having us to go. And so our big idea from Sunday is this: the story of Advent teaches us that God desires his people to be people of faith. The story of Advent teaches us that God desires his people to be people of faith. He wants us to be able to say, when he calls to us, "Hey, I am your servant. I am ready to go." That's what he desires for us. So our challenge this week is to take a step of faith. So we do that first by committing our lives to following Jesus. Once again, we commit and say, "Hey, I'm all in. I'm following Jesus. My allegiance, my loyalty is to Jesus alone." And then we go and we find somebody to show love to, right? That's what God has called us to do. Love him with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so as we commit to following Jesus, as we take this step of faith, the logical place to start is to love someone. Help somebody out. Give them a gift, help them with a project, or meet some sort of need. Whatever it is, show them that you love them. Hey, thank you for being part of Bethlehem. Want to remind you that you can join us on Sunday mornings at 10:30 on Facebook, YouTube, or better yet, here in person in Austin, Minnesota, next to Ellis Middle School. If there's a prayer request that you have for me, please let me know. I'd like to be praying for you. And if you want to be supporting the work that we're doing here, first of all, continue to pray for opportunities for us to reach out into our community with the good news of Jesus. And also, you can give. You can go to our website, BethlehemChurchAustin.com, and follow the Give tab, and that will help us to do ministry right here in Austin. Thanks again for being part of Bethlehem. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and God bless.